Hi everyone, this is Selena Kraus and welcome to another LDRS creative card video. In this video, we'll make a card using the Petal Pusher's Cardinal Season stamp set, and we'll create a little scene using masking technique using the LDRS creative stamp masking paper. So let's get started. I've already pre-cut my masks from the mask paper. As well, I'm using the Scalloped Circles die set. I'm using the second to the largest to create that little scene where we're going to do some ink blending. So I have the negative and the circle and the negative. We're going to use the negative, but we're going to use the circle for positioning that negative around so it's nice and centered. So let's get started. This is one of the new, I forgot to mention, this is one of the new stamp sets, the new design Petal Pushers, where it comes with coordinating dies that cut out parts of the images where you can just push them up to create more dimension. I'm not going to use those today. I'm just using the dies for some masking. So I have a piece of white cardstock measuring 4 by 5 1/4, and we'll do some stamping onto the white cardstock. I'm preconditioning my stamps here because it's the first time I'm using some watermark, embossing and watermark ink. As you saw here, and then I just wiped it with microfiber cloth that doesn't leave any lint behind, so it doesn't interfere with the stamping. So I'm using for my first layer, I'm using Kiss Me Red ink. I'm just doing it twice because I saw like it looks a little bit splotchy in the middle of the larger cardinal. So I stamped it twice. And then for the second layer, I'll be using the Scarlet Rose, which is a little bit darker red. So in the meantime, I'm heat setting that ink so it's nice and dry because I stamped twice. Even though it dries quick, when you have 2 layers, I like to make sure that it's pretty nice and dry. So when I layer my inks, they don't bleed into each other. So we have a crisp lines between and crisp image. So I'm using vellum to make sure that I have positioned that correctly, and I'm stamping with the Scarlet Red. So next we're gonna go with a third layer. And this is just the eyes and the beaks of the cardinals, and I'll stamp those in Raven ink. That's a black ink. And again, I'll heat set really quickly. Not really heat set it, but just like zap it with my heat tool to make sure that it's dry. I'm using the vellum to make sure that I have those positioned correctly and we don't have the eye somewhere kind of offset a little bit, which will kind of mess up my the image. So I'm gonna stamp that again. I'm using the Raven ink, and next we'll do the scarf. I'm positioning that, and again I'll use my vellum piece. You don't need to use vellum piece. You can use some acetate from stamp set and just wipe it, or just not use anything if you know that it's positioned correctly. When I come like further along into my stamping process, I like to use that vellum to make sure that I don't mess up my image and need to start again. So next I created a mask. This is not die cut. I just stamped the image because I wanted the bottom to be very close to my stamped images because we're gonna stamp that branch on top. And then we're gonna stamp the pine needles, I don't know what they're called. I'm stamping with coffee bean ink here. I stamped the branch, and next I'll position the pine, they're not really leaves, pine needles, on where they go into that branch. So because one is going off the page, I move my cardstock out of the to the middle of my stamping platform, and I'm using evergreen ink. I'm stamping all 3 at the same time. So I'm stamping twice. I had to stamp twice because I didn't really condition the stamps. So next what we'll do, I'm using the negative from those masks that I created to center those because I could not really tell if I just adhere them on top. I wanted them to be centered. So I'm masking every single element that I stamped, the birds, the pine needles, and the branch. Again, I'm using that negative from the mask to position them correctly. Then we have one more here. And then we'll do the same thing for the branch. It doesn't really matter in which order you're gonna mask those as long as everything is covered. Because we're gonna do some ink blending and we don't want that ink to go over our images. As well, using the die cut mask creates a little white border around the image. So here I'm using that circle to center it, and then I'm using that to position that negative from the die cut. So here I was gonna do blue sky in the background, and however when I start ink blending from the top, I was gonna do lightest on the top, darkest on the bottom. I actually had pink on my brush. So in order to not kind of waste my card, toss it in the trash, I decided to do a night sky. So we're moving from dark blue, like navy, dark wash jeans, to plum crazy, and then we're doing some lipstick jungle on top. So that's like a little bit stronger pink, and blending those together, and then we're gonna splash some white shimmer paint and just white acrylic paint to create those stars. So just mask it on that little bit that was poking out from the masking paper, and just splashing all that paint. Using tweezers, I'm removing all the masks now, and you can see the magic happening. So we're almost done here. We just need a sentiment. I'm using the Happy Holidays, and I'm using Craven ink. I stamped it twice. I forgot to condition my stamp, so I had to stamp it twice. So next I'm using a red piece of cardstock measuring 5.5 by 8.5, and I scored it at 4.25 to create my side folding note card, and I'm using some fan foam to adhere the panel onto my card base. And this finishes our card. Thanks for watching, and see you soon in another video. Bye!